Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have an unboxing of the Galaxy A25 5G. Let's get started. In this case, the launch price of this device in Mexico has been 5,999 pesos. It is a device that in many things could come to compete mainly against the Galaxy A34 5G. And even that model has water resistance. So I sincerely believe that in this case, Samsung is competing with itself with the previous generation if you manage to find it. But let's know what has this device that is aimed at the mid-range. To start, let's take it out of its box. As Samsung is getting used to, the box does not include much, so in this first stage we will only find the USB-C to USB-C cable, and then we will have the papers of a lifetime. Now simply remains to remove the phone from the box because there is not much more content. Let's turn on the device while we see what else comes in the box. For now we realize that it has a back cover that seems to have a certain grid. In the box there is not much more content, only advertising Samsung Care Plus, which is an insurance that you can buy to protect your device, and finally the tool to remove the tray. Done. I already have this device configured, so let's know its specifications. Has a weight of 197 grams and a thickness of 8.3 millimeters. In this sense, if it is a little lighter and thinner than its smaller brothers, so it feels that it is refining a little experience with respect to the Galaxy A15 and Galaxy A15 5G. The screen is 6.5 inches in its diagonal, AMOLED Full HD Plus technology in its resolution, and 120 Hz in its refresh rate. Again, is a screen that if you feel a higher level with respect to their younger brothers, especially for the brightness and quality of representation of white color in the simplest AMOLED screens, can look a little greenish, but in this case we are facing a screen that seems to have higher quality than that integrated in the Galaxy A15 and a 15 5G. Plus, in this case already reaches 120 Hz in its update rate, capable of showing smoother and more fluid movements. Integrates headphone jack and has the main speaker in this bottom, but also has secondary audio output in the earpiece for calls. So if it offers stereo sound, that's a very good thing, because in this price range Samsung did not used to give us that feature, but finally is determined to improve the user experience. The front camera is 13 megapixels with f-aperture 2.2. Curiously seems to have a less bright aperture than its smaller brothers. At least talking about specifications, the front camera of this model is inferior against what we see in Galaxy A15 and Galaxy A15 5G. Here you are seeing my first impressions test before taking the picture. Still looks a little unbalanced in terms of balance of lights and shadows. But after taking the picture, the truth is that the result is positive. We have a good level of detail, good color rendering. I do not feel it is a bad camera, but in the video review we will make a more detailed analysis. And on the back we find first the 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera with f-aperture 2.2, then the 50 megapixel camera with f-aperture 1.8, and finally the 2 megapixel macro camera with f-aperture 2.4. The photographic system does not look too advanced, but fortunately they put 8 megapixels to the ultra-wide camera that other manufacturers use with 5 megapixels. Here I have some example photographs. This is using the ultra-wide camera. In this case I think it gives us a good color and also a good level of detail. Does not feel so much distortion in the edges. I think it is a camera that can be positive in this price range. Then I have the main camera, and again the photograph is good in this case. Has a reflection a little intense because the sun was practically in front, but the result I insist is positive. Here I took the picture with the 2x digital zoom setting, where you can still see with good quality photography, and the maximum zoom is 10x. In this case I think it also gets to keep a good quality in the maximum zoom, although obviously we are talking only about digital zoom, so do not think it is something ultra spectacular. Below I have a photograph taken with the 50 megapixel mode, just so you can see the level of detail that is capable of achieving. In this case is a high detail, but I feel that with the younger brothers saw a little more definition in the photograph. I get that feeling, but in the video review I'll tell you more details about him. And notice how this photograph was captured with the main camera. I did not use the macro camera, I simply used the 2x zoom setting, and observe the level of detail that it is able to give us. I think it is very good in this type of photographs. So the macro camera, I do not consider it useful because it will not be able to give us more detail than the main camera can give us. See how we have a well-detailed photograph, and with the macro camera we have even less detail than we reach with the main camera. So the macro camera for me is useless. I have said it many times, although Samsung in some models usually put 5 megapixel macro camera, so you could probably reach a little more detail, but when it is 2 megapixels, honestly I do not find very useful. Finally, I took a portrait photo just to give a first impression to this type of photos, and it seems that it is able to detect the foreground well and blur the background well, at least that I insist that it is in first impressions. Impressions. This device can already record video in 4K at 30 frames per second or in Full HD at 60 frames per second. Probably this is its strongest point because in this price range there will be very few options that allow you to record video in 4K, and in this case I think it could be very attractive for certain users also going to offer us 6 gigabytes of RAM accompanied by 128 gigabytes of internal storage. It does not become something outstanding, so in this sense simply stays within what one would expect in this price range. It comes with One UI 6.0 and Android 14. That is excellent news considering that Samsung also promises you 4 years of software updates and 5 years of security patches for this device. So in the policy of updates, Samsung is ahead of virtually all its competition, especially in this price range. To give you an idea of this policy, other manufacturers match it only on their high-end devices, but the fact that Samsung offers it from its entry series devices is a very good thing. The battery is 5000 milliamps and supports 25 watts charging, although the charger is sold separately. This is one of the most controversial points that will always be criticized by Samsung. And finally, the processor is the Exynos 1280. That is, it is the same processor that Samsung used in the Galaxy A53. So I think it is a processor that could be considered attractive. Hopefully by this time it's a processor that's already a little bit more optimized. But let's do a benchmark to know more or less the power it's capable of granting us, and we'll get back to you when this test is over. And ready, here we have the results. 962 points in single core and 2074 points in multi-core, showing that it does have good muscle, although the issue of optimization will be paramount, especially if what you are most interested in are games. Surely for applications it will be an efficient processor for the vast majority of people, but if you are one of the most demanding in gaming it could fall short. Although we will test it in the video review because possibly the processor is currently more optimized. For now we have reached the end of this video. I hope you liked it. If so, you know you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.